Hello, and welcome to the Hello You Show, where we talk about big dreams and taking real action. Through transformative stories, a bit of neuroscience, and real conversations, this show is here to help you explore creating your next level life with authenticity and passion. I'm Jessica Rice, a design techie and former engineering leader turned vision evolution coach on a mission to help other women rise up and lead a life of purpose. So get cozy and say hello again to the real you. Hello. Welcome back to the Hello You Show. My name is Jessica Rice. I'm your host. Thanks so much for joining me today. It's on the bud of Thanksgiving. We are about, at least in the US it is, and we are about to embark into truly what is the holiday season if you haven't already started. I know for me and my family, we start pretty early. In fact, I feel like Halloween is kind of the beginning of it. We watch a ton of movies and start with all of the holiday festivities, and now we're into full swing. What starts to take place sometimes with the holidays is a series of mixed feelings. It's the end of the year. We're thinking and reflecting back on the previous year and where we've come, all of the hopes that we may have had that didn't come into fruition, all of the things that we're wanting to still see come into fruition. Maybe it's budding on the surface for you. And then how do we prepare for the coming year? And so there's all these different thoughts that come into play, not to mention, we're trying to deal with the busyness of the holidays. We're dealing with families. We're dealing with trying to, if you have children, be the magic maker for this season. Now, my son is a little bit older now, so he finally learned about Santa Claus and what that means and all of that. And sometimes I know that some families don't follow those traditions and some do. However, this is probably my first year where I don't feel like I have to be, drawn into some of that stuff where it's the same level. And so that's kind of a blessing as well in many respects. And he gets to be a part of it and is very excited. We have Snowball, our elf, who comes to visit every year. And so now he can kind of be a part of that magic. But for many years, I remember feeling like this invisible person behind the scenes, making all of this stuff happen. And in honesty, not getting a whole lot of thanks for it because, again, it wasn't me. So if that's something that you're going through, I hear you, I see you, I feel you. Just know that in time it will pay off and you will, reap some rewards. I did get a big thank you after he finally realized and after we had this kind of big talk and conversation, and it actually went very well. So on that note, there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on. I hope you can relax in. I've brought my coffee. I'm feeling very festive in gold and green. And so I think it's important that no matter what we do, is number one is we take care of ourselves. First and foremost, we have to care for ourselves or no one else will, right? We're the first person. So do those extra things for yourself this season, especially, you know, wear the things you want to wear, get dressed. There are many days where I wake up and I think, oh, I just don't really want to get ready. I don't want to do my hair. But then once I do, I feel so much better. Same thing with exercise, same thing with eating well sometimes. And this time of year is a little bit hard. So have a little bit of fun too. And then just recognize, pay attention, be mindful of your body and what it's telling you so that we don't go one way or the other. Because our emotions can sometimes really take a toll. So a couple of things that, come to mind with all of this is number one, it's regret. How do we face regret? How do we face maybe we didn't do some of the things that we wanted to, or we didn't succeed in the ways that we thought we would? I know for me that happens quite often because when I start out a year, I have a lot of very hopeful ideas, a lot of wonderful things. And then as the year starts to progress, things don't always unfold the way that we expect them to. And then we have to, deal with that. And it can be contentious and there can be this conflict that we're facing inside where we're going back and forth around what we should have done differently, maybe things that we should have considered more against what really happened. And we're judging ourselves over and over and over again, being so hypercritical of things that maybe were even outside of our control. And we also have to recognize that we don't know the future. We can't see into, whatever God's plan is for us. And so we have to contend with the fact that we are doing the best that we can do. And I think as driven women, ambitious, successful women who are leaders, who are running businesses, this can be incredibly challenging because we're already setting a super high bar for ourselves. And we are expecting that we're going to meet this bar. And so, for any reason that we don't, all the rest of the shame and the guilt and the frustration starts to unfold. And then we have to contend with, are we cut out for this? Is this exactly what I'm supposed to be doing? I mean, I tell myself these things sometimes too, gosh, do you just suck at this? And we have to really be mindful again of what we're feeding back to ourselves. And so when we talk about Thanksgiving, this time of gratitude, this time of giving thanks, it can feel really sticky sometimes. Like, yes, we know that we're supposed to be doing that. I should be feeling this way, but maybe I don't. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I feel like this is an incredibly hard time. And I know for many, this is a really hard year. And we've had a few hard years. And so sometimes digging deep into that can feel like a struggle. So we have to take care of ourselves. So sometimes there is that, and I think I've talked about that before, that whole fake it till you make it kind of thing. What are some of the things that you can start to do to feel accomplished? Really digging deep back into, okay, what are some things that I can do? And so sometimes when I'm working with clients around these things, we're talking about, how we develop habits and rituals and goals, even small ones that we can set for ourselves, where at least we feel like, okay, I'm successful here, I'm successful here, so that we're constantly reminding our mind of our progress. Our mind is a really tricky place. And if we're not feeding it gratitude, if we're not feeding it reward, if we're not celebrating, if we're not reminding ourselves of the good work that we have been doing, then it's very easy for our mind to slip and to fall into this kind of cycle of blame and self-defeat and self-deprecation. And the only way that we can get back out of that is to do little things, even that remind us of good things that we're doing. And it's not so much about looking outward. I want you to be very careful and very mindful of that. It's not about looking for a reward elsewhere. It's not looking for recognition from other people. It's not about overstacking our plate as a pleaser, because I know a lot of ambitious women are pleasers as well. And so we just start taking on everything. And then we feel resentful because we're not seeing the recognition that we're looking for from our partner, from family, from our children. And I know that that's that thing that we don't like to talk about. We don't ever want to say that that's what we're looking for. But there is a piece of us sometimes where if it's not recognized, where we feel that sting a little bit. And I think especially as women, because we want to give and we want to nurture. And when it doesn't come back, we can start to feel like we're not being seen or valued. And that can start to manifest in all these interesting and complicated ways. So when we're doing stuff for ourselves, when I'm talking about doing stuff, that's why I'm saying, okay, get dressed, do something for you. Don't get dressed so that your husband or your partner sees you and thinks, oh, great, for yourself. Also, You know, what are the different things that you can be doing? I know when I'm waking up, it's like, okay, where's my glass of water? I need to have a big glass of water or two. And if I don't do it, I have to remind myself to do it all the time. So if I do it though, I feel really good. And it starts my day off on the right foot. Okay, I did that. That was good. I need to be hydrated. And I know for my body, after the surgeries that I've had and missing my colon, I am dehydrated constantly. And so I always have to think about these things. And so for you, what is the thing that you sometimes tend to neglect because you might put yourself last that you need to start stepping up and putting yourself forward and doing? All of these little things, they start to add up. Go for the walk. Write down in your journal, list out, maybe if you're struggling, just write one thing that you might be grateful for. Put it on a post-it note. It could be one word even. Start thinking about what are different ways that you could fill up your cup, even minimally. When we're very driven, we start to compare ourselves and the things that we're doing against very lofty goals and ideas. I'm going to have this level of success and we're going to launch this. And I know, it's like, I know for us, that was the same thing. We just launched a new business, a new shopping e-commerce website for women, and I poured myself into it. And then there's a moments where I have to remind myself that I need to step back. I need to slow down. I need to look around me and my family, all of the rest of the things, and also not set expectations for myself that are too high. Not that I can't accomplish it, but that I'm expecting some sort of, amazing outcome for the effort that I'm putting in, when in truth, everything takes time. In its due course, things will come, but it takes time. And sometimes when we're running at 100 miles an hour, time is the last thing that we feel like we have. But is it self-inflicted? Are we creating the chaos? Are we creating artificial deadlines? And sometimes we are. Sometimes we've set that in our mind. And so it's incredibly important, number one, that we start filling our cup in these different ways where we can then manage some of the thoughts and the judgments that are taking place in a healthier way. And the next piece is planning. How are we planning realistically for the future? How are we thinking about what are those actual goals that we want to set for ourselves and start to accomplish? Thinking really big picture, but then narrowing it down. And when I'm talking about those goals, I'm really thinking about, what we can do within a week or two. Because sometimes we're so stretched out that we're like, okay, we're just doing and doing and doing and doing, and we don't really know where the end goal is at times. Especially if you're a little bit like me, where it's like there's a little bit of neurodivergence happening in there. There's a little bit of all this chaos, and you're just kind of going. It can be incredibly great when you're creative and you have all these spurts of energy, but also can, if we're not mindful of it, can lead us into different and interesting paths that we didn't plan for. So being mindful then of how we are spending our time, what are the tasks that we have on our plate for today? How are they leading into those goals that we want to set for ourselves over the next couple of weeks? And what are those leading into as well? And then some of the future planning, not in the sense of expectation. I think this is where, when we have New Year's resolutions and we have these big lofty things, we can fall into the trap of thinking of only the end state, but not how we get there. What's it going to require? What do we actually need to do? What is the work that we have to put in? That's the hard part. The consistency, the doing of the things that we, there's always the fun side, but there's some of the things that we don't enjoy doing. And so how do we remain consistent during those moments? It's so interesting this time because I think that we are creatures where we're recognizing, and I don't know about you, but as I'm starting to reach, midlife here, you start to think about your mortality, you start to think about time. For me, it seems to be going by so much faster than when I was in my 20s. Every year just blows by, and it's like, wait a minute, aren't we just starting the year? How is it already ending? And so then we feel all of these emotions around it. And some of it's excitement, some of it's gratitude, and sometimes there's a lot of other feelings going on as well. So it's incredibly important to be mindful and setting those goals and taking care of yourself. One of the things that I started doing this year that I don't normally do, I always struggle with reading. I can read, but I don't always have the patience for it. I like to read articles, I'll read a lot of other things, but reading books is a challenge for me. And so I just started this new um, class that I'm having to take, and it's requiring us to go through a book. Now, since I started homeschooling, I've realized that I can actually read a lot of books in a very short period of time because I have to still read to my son. He just greatly enjoys that. He enjoys when I do all the voices and everything else. And so I've recognized that I can do a lot more. And that was a muscle that I had to build. But reading for myself hasn't always been very easy. As I'm starting to accomplish this, though, I'm starting to recognize that I can do this. I can actually read through this whole book. And so this program that I'm in, it's really stretching me because I might start a book and then I would never finish it. Um, but now we're reading a book a month, which I know for some people that just eat up books on the weekend. I never seem to have the time for that. And my husband goes to bed before I do. And so it's not like I lay in bed and read books and things like that. I'm very seldom do. So I have to find in, work in time. And so what I'm starting to realize is that I can work in time, while I'm at my desk, maybe in between calls or while I have, maybe 10 minutes here and there and then kind of read. And then I'll also buy the audio companion for the book while I'm driving places, which I'm not often driving because we work from home. But when we're driving, then I can listen to it. And so then I can also go back to the book and highlight it because sometimes the books I'm listening to are educational in format. So I'm trying to think, like what are things that you could also consider that is a win for you as well? So if you are thinking about your health and taking care of yourself, what are other wins that you can add to your plate that aren't necessarily super lofty? They're not going to take you down some negative path where you're taking on more than you really bargained for. But little ways that you can prove to yourself that you can accomplish things that you set out to do. Because the more that we have that reminder, the more that we can start to recognize that I can do these things, I can do these hard things. I know for years I told myself, oh, I never read. I never seem to finish a book. I never can read a book. I never can finish. And all I was doing was reinforcing in my mind that I can never finish a book. Well, lo and behold, I can. So, what are some things that maybe you could think about as little goals for yourself moving into the coming year? And maybe even starting sooner than, say, January, so that you're already building some of these muscles that will then contribute to that New Year's feeling that we often have when we're moving into the new year. It feels like a fresh start because we tell ourselves it's a fresh start, but really it's a continuation of habits that we've already been developing. So if you could think about some of the things that you are doing for yourself and how you're filling your cup and how you're continually tapping into that reward center of your brain, you're going to be doing so much better than 90% of the people by the time that New Year's hits and getting through the holidays, which is oftentimes very tricky because especially if you've had, things that have happened, trauma, sad things, it can be incredibly hard. So how do we lift ourselves up? How do we feel good about this? How do we remind ourselves? I know for me too, with perimenopause and the hormones that I've been experiencing, there are days where I really need to lift myself up because I'm noticing like, gosh, what's going on with me? My doctor can tell me all she wants that I'm too young for all of that, but it's happening. I know it's happening because I haven't had mood swings like this in a while. So What can you do to support yourself? What can you do to lift yourself up so that, you are still the person that you want to be in this season, who you want to be for your family, who you want to be for you, most importantly, and remind yourself. So, what are some of the books that I'm reading? I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be starting with my class, is Imposter No More. I'm excited about this book. We just got out of a very intense book it was like a psychotherapy book, which was helpful, and it wasn't really as enjoyable to read, to be honest. But I made it. But yeah, Imposter No More by Jill Stoddard, Overcoming Self-Doubt and Imposterism to Cultivate a Successful Career. So I'm just starting this one. Another one that I had started reading because I had read to my son all of the Narnia books, and so I wanted to dig into deeper, so I was reading the Narnia Code. This one's taking me longer because I kind of come back and forth to it, but very interested in this book. As you know, I have a Christian background, and so that inspires me and interests me. And also I'm reading The Fight for Female, which is reclaiming our divine identity. And I'm very, I've only just started this book as well, but I'm very excited about it. It has the first chapter alone. Actually, I read the first 2 chapters in a sitting. Were really enlightening. So if you have a faith background and that's something that you're interested in, I would highly recommend checking that book out too. And then speaking of books, I have an anthology book that just came out where it's me and 20, 22 other authors in there, including Jim Britt and Jim Lutz, forward by Les Brown. And it's a book on inspiration and overcoming trauma, anything in relation to, how we rise up and continue to empower ourselves in success. And so if you're looking to read several different stories of empowerment and overcoming and really kind of kickstart yourself into thinking about all the possibilities for yourself, especially if you need a little bit of a boost, then check it out. I'll put the link into the comments. It's not too big of a book, but it does have so many incredible authors in there. I loved getting to know each and every one of them and listening to their stories. Just so powerful, so incredible. And it's all about overcoming. So if you're feeling a little bit drained this holiday season, then you might want to consider reading that book if you like, just to give yourself a little bit of extra lift. And also remind yourself, the whole reason that I participate in those types of activities and I do this show and all of these things is to remind other women specifically that we can do anything. We can achieve what we set our minds to. And what's hard is that we're so hard on ourselves. Society has been hard on us. We're hard on ourselves. And we have to remind ourselves that just because we didn't maybe accomplish something that we wanted to within a specific time frame that we had set inside of our mind doesn't mean that we can't accomplish it. It just might mean that we have to be more patient. It might mean that we need to, pivot a little bit. It might mean that we need to just lift ourselves up or reframe our thinking. There's so many things that we can do to help ourselves, but it all is within the realm of possibility. And if I can overcome some of the traumas that I've experienced in my life, so can you. We've all gone through something. It's all relative. And yet at the same time, it doesn't have to remind us that we have to be held down or held back. And so remember that this holiday season, when you're going out and you're being everything that you can possibly be, and if you are the magic maker in your family, get yourself around some other female friends who can lift you up and encourage you and be there as a support system for you. And remember that you are doing wonderful things and that the things that you have inside of you, those seeds that have been planted, they're there for a reason. God has put them in your life for a reason. And so they're not to be ignored. And you might just need to think about What are some other ways to execute on that? What are some ways that you can plan for that and set yourself up for success? As always, I'd love to hear from you. Please reach out. You can find me at Jessica Rice Coaching, or I believe you can write into the Hello You show as well. And, let's connect. I would love to hear what's coming up for you, what inspires you, and what are challenges that you're facing. I always love to hear. All right. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, no matter what you're doing, even if it's small, even if it's quaint and quiet, or if it's loud and messy and crazy. Just remember, you are the most important person to fill up during this holiday season so that you can then be everything that you want to be, that God has called you to be. But we can't do it if we don't, if we're just drained and putting ourselves completely last. It just doesn't work. So have a wonderful holiday, and then we will be in touch next week. Thanks for joining. Thank you for tuning in to the Hello You Show. It's been a pleasure to have you with us on this journey today. If you found value in our conversation and want to support the show, please take a moment to like, follow, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd also deeply appreciate it if you could leave us a review. Your feedback not only helps us grow, but also enables others seeking inspiration and authenticity to discover our community. Until next time, keep embracing your story with purpose.